Hi, my name is Kate. This is my channel, and this is I suppose it's my wrap up for NonFiction November 2020. I have been mentioning that I thought I didn't think I was going to get very much read for NonFiction November. This is after I'd setting myself a goal of reading 4 books. I didn't finish my first one until the 21st of November, so I wasn't holding out much hope for a big read, but I've actually completed, now that it is the 30th of November, the last day of November, I've got 3 things. So the first one I've mentioned quite a few times in my currently reading Friday reads, weekend reads, whatever videos, and that was The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat by Oliver Sacks. So that's the one that took me quite some time, so it was in a few of my weekly videos. It was okay, I liked it, but I will never reread it, and I don't know that I'll return to it very often. Oliver Sacks is quite a well-known science writer. He has got quite a few books out. I think he died a few years ago though, so like his backlist is his list. That's all we're going to get from him. I might look into some more of his work, although I think they're all sort of neurological based, looks into perception and reality and the brain and disorders of the brain, things like that. So I think that's mostly what he's about. So I may in the future read another one, but I don't imagine that I'll seek his work out. The book that I finished most recently, I finished on Friday night. Can't quite remember, Thursday or Friday night. And now it could be considered a cheat because I actually started it when Australia first went into their bits of lockdown back in March, because I wasn't getting that much work, or I was working, but I wasn't working as much. I was quite stressed, and I needed something quite intense and academic to distract myself. And then I sort of read bits and pieces here. Like I read a good chunk of it right at the beginning of COVID, and then sort of bits and pieces on and off throughout, mostly when I was feeling stressed. But I finished it on Friday. I think I read the last 70 pages, which is actually about a third of the book. It's quite academic. It's quite niche. It's related to my work. Alternative Narratives in Early Childhood, an Introduction for Students and Practitioners by Peter Moss. I read a lot of Peter Moss at uni. He's quite intense. I enjoyed a lot of this, even though a lot of the ideas were quite familiar. There were some new things as well. I particularly loved the last chapter on posthumanism. What was it called? The chapter is Posthumanism, the Posthuman Child. Posthumanism, the Posthuman Child, and Intra-Active Pedagogy. Very niche, but it sparked some interesting thoughts about things that I'm doing at work at the moment. And I've underlined, and there's annotations, so it was a good non-fiction read. But yes, I don't think it'll be of interest to many, but I did read it, I did finish it, so I'm counting it towards non-fiction November. The last book that I've got here, I'm counting towards both non-fiction November and Tome Topple, and that is Isabella of Castile, Europe's First Great Queen by Giles Tremblay, not sure. And the text itself is just short of 500. It's 487, but then there's like 120 pages of notes, acknowledgements, index, and bibliography. And I did read quite a few of the notes as well, so it's close enough. And then I read some of the excess stuff, including the appendices. So 500 pages. So this is a historical, I suppose you would call it a biography, but it's a historical work looking at the reign of Isabella of Castile, which the author goes to great pains to say that she ruled alongside her husband, King Ferdinand of Aragon, and they were joint rulers of Castile. She didn't rule his kingdom, but he jointly ruled hers. And Tremlett, I think there's two T's, so I think it's Tremlett. Tremlett goes to great pains to say that she saw him absolutely as a co-ruler. He absolutely saw himself as a co-ruler, and that you can't look at her reign separate from their reign. I didn't know a lot about Isabella of Castile. I kind of vaguely knew that she had existed. I kind of vaguely knew that she was related to the Tudors in England. But other than that, I didn't know much. Bit embarrassed as I was reading it to realise that she was kind of involved in everything. So she was involved with the Tudors. She was the mother of Catherine of Aragon, who was Henry VIII's first wife. She was the mother of Mary Tudor, who succeeded Henry VIII after the death of her brother. I think her brother lived for a little while first. Anyway, she was Bloody Mary, and Henry VIII separated from the Catholic Church so that he could divorce Catherine of Aragon, Isabella's daughter. So that's a whole big thing that she was kind of related to. She began the Spanish Inquisition. She came up with that idea and did that first. And it was about exiling Jews from Castile. And then it was about exiling Muslims from Castile. And then it was about heresy in the New World. And she got, the Inquisition went to the New World because Isabella of Castile was the one who funded Christopher Columbus. I didn't know any of this, and I felt like a right idiot because I am, a person who's really interested in history, particularly that, I particularly like the Tudors, but anything sort of either side of Henry VIII, especially up until the end of Elizabeth's reign, is my sweet spot. So I should have, and I'm particularly interested in queens and powerful women of particularly European history. I don't know very much about elsewhere in the world, but that's like my sweet spot, and I didn't know about this woman, so I felt like a dummy. So I'm glad that I've read it, and that I could count it towards two challenges, NonFiction November and Tome Topple. I've never done Tome Topple before, so that was the first time I've ever done Tome Topple, completed Tome Topple, and it's usually only because I don't find out about Tome Topple until like the last day, and you can't read a 500-page book in a day, especially because the time zones are out for me, so it's usually that I'm been at work all day. Now, I did also, because I finished the Peter Moss book on Thursday, I was like, oh, right, it's still a whole weekend left. What I'm going to do is I'm going to spend the last weekend of NonFiction November trying to read another non-fiction book, so I could read 4 and get to the end. So I actually read, over here, the first 2 pages of Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind by Yuval Noah Harari, which is quite a popular book and made a big splash a few years ago. But I only read 2 pages of it because this weekend in Sydney was hideously hot. It was 40 degrees, over 40 degrees both days. So my flatmate and I were sitting in the air conditioning and on our lounge, and she put on Gossip Girl, so I sort of started half watching Gossip Girl, put this book down, just watched Gossip Girl, and then went, I need to read, but I couldn't read this and watch Gossip Girl, so I was reading romance novels while watching Gossip Girl. So this will get read eventually, but it's not going to happen for NonFiction November because there are 5.5 hours left of NonFiction November at this point. Okay, so here is my stack of non-fiction November books. Bit of a range, but I'm excited to have actually completed a readathon, a reading challenge in 2020. So it's the only one I've done, but I'm quite proud of myself for it. So thanks. Bye.